All right. So, good day, everyone, and welcome to today's Tempo Wellness webinar. My name is Vilmarie Uber, and I'm a Tempo Wellness Coordinator for Bestmed. And we want to take the time just to thank you for joining us today. Please feel free if you have any questions to pop it into the chat box, or at the end of today's session, we will also allow you to unmute and then speak to us directly. As you know, we have a very full program again today, starting with a wonderful speaker that will unpack how stress shows up in our physical body and how it impacts our overall well-being. At the end of the session, we will also be hosting a Tempo competition, asking you questions about our Tempo webpage and about today's presentation. And as always, prizes are up for grabs. So our speaker today is Dr. Travis Mitchell, and he is a chiropractor with a passion for integrative health and wellness medicine. His focus is on the human body's ability to actually heal itself and when it's provided with the right tools and support. So we're very honored to have him with us today, and we look forward to the insights that he will want to share with us. Dr. Travis, if you can just go to the next slide, I want to take a moment just to remind our Bestmed members of their Tempo Wellness program. And I want to challenge all Bestmed members. If you have not done your Tempo Wellness screening, please take a moment, take out your phone, pop into your calendar when you will have 15 minutes to just visit your local Tempo pharmacy to do your Tempo Wellness screening. That activates the following benefits. You can go to for your nutritional benefits, which gives you 2 consultations at a Tempo dietitian and 2 consultations with a Tempo partnered biokineticist. You also have emotional well-being benefits that like today's webinar, as well as what is available on the Tempo webpage. But more about that later. Dr. Travis, we are so excited to be hearing from you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Vilmarie. Am I allowed to enter the competition and win a prize as well?
If you know my the web page questions, yes, but not your own questions.
Okay. I thought that was going to be cool. If I know my own answers, then that helps us out, you know? So most people know that they're stressed. But the challenge now is no longer, is it just that you're stressed? The question that we ask is, why is it getting worse? And as importantly, why does nothing seem to fix our stress? So today, instead of talking about ways to manage your stress, I really want to talk to you guys about why does stress feel worse than ever? Why does nothing seem to fix it? And what is actually going to work now in terms of your stress management process? And I say it that way because every single person in this world today, especially in South Africa, needs to have their own stress management process. This is not just every now and then taking time out. This is every day making sure that you are managing your stress. I want to address the most important conversation. Most people, particularly in the corporate world, will believe that if they feel stressed, that means they're weak. And the answer is, you're not weak if you feel stressed. We're living in an abnormal environment. And therefore, your body is naturally responding. It's a normal response for you to be stressed because of the abnormal environment that we're living in. So if we're not addressing the abnormal environment, we're not addressing the stress because it's a normal response. And for a lot of people, just knowing that, hang on a second, what's happening with me doesn't mean that I'm broken. It doesn't mean that I'm weak. It is actually my body responding normally to this abnormal environment. So when we talk about this as an abnormal environment, everybody, every single day is consumed. So today, when we were setting up for this presentation, Vilmarie was wanting me to try and have 2 screens, and I can guarantee most people that are on this webinar have at least two screens, maybe at least two devices. And then this myriad of information that's coming at you all the time. And you never seem to switch off because there's always more information. There's always more things to be consumed with. Who feels like this guy sitting here holding his head, thinking about, where do I turn left? Do I turn right? What am I looking at? What am I going to address first? What's the next thing that I need to get to? But I'm behind time on that thing. And so I can't get to this, and this thing starts to build. And how often are you feeling like this? If it's once a week, it's not a big deal. If it's a couple of times a week, it starts to become more of a deal. If it's every day, you're in trouble. If it is consistent throughout the day, then you're even bigger trouble. Because what we know about stress is accumulative. We call it compounding. So most people know that if you invest early enough for your retirement, and you allow that compound interest to grow, the earlier you invest, the greater you're going to be able to retire. So that's positive compound interest. We all know the opposite. Yeah, you've got a credit card and you're supposed to pay a monthly premium. And instead of paying that full monthly premium, you only pay a component of that. And so the interest keeps compounding. And then eventually you've got a much bigger amount to pay to your credit card. That's negative compounding interest. And so stress is a negative compound interest on our body, especially if every day you're dealing with this myriad and menagerie and monster of information that's hitting you on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk about stress. What is stress? Stress is the body and the mind's response. Now, remember, it's two things. A lot of people, when I talk to them and I say, how stressed are you? They will say to me, I'm not stressed. And as a chiropractor, as a neurological chiropractor, I'm very much interested in how much stress is in the body. And a lot of people will tell me, but I'm not stressed. Mentally, you don't think that you're stressed, but physiologically in the body. And we call that allostatic load. It's a really nice term to go and look at. Allostatic, Allostatic. I presume my spelling is correct. My English teacher will tell you that I didn't do so well at spelling. But anyway, we'll continue. So allostatic load, there's a lot of building research that shows that allostatic load is a major component behind most chronic illnesses. So it is a mind and a body's response to demand, to challenge, to threat, or to change. So think about it for the moment. How often during the day is your time demanded? How often in your day is your mental capacity demanded? How often in the day is your physical capacity demanded? This is an interesting one because a person will say to me, I'll ask the question, how do you deal with stress? And they'll say, well, I'll go exercise. Well, just know that exercise is physical demand on the body. So if you've already got a high allostatic load and you're now exercising, you're adding to that load. You're not taking away from it. How often are you faced with a challenge? I had a chat to one of my patients today, and she's now involved in the AI conversation. And I think for a lot of us, AI challenges us. How often do you feel threatened? If you're like me, you drive to the office early in the morning and you drive home late at night, and you stop at a robot, and the robot is off, and you're looking left and you're looking right, and you're looking for cars, and you're looking for perhaps Tutsis that are going to come and hijack you. So you're under threat on a regular basis. And then finally, when it comes to weather change, I mean, there's a lot of change that happens on a day-to-day basis for us. What is important is stress is a normal survival mechanism. Think about this for a moment. You're in the savannah and you're walking around, and a lion jumps out at you. If you didn't have that stress response, If you did not have that stress response, that would be abnormal. If you didn't have that stress response, the lion would get you. So we have been built into the mechanism, the stress mechanism, and it is a survival mechanism for us. It's designed to protect us. It's designed for us to respond differently to different scenarios, and hopefully for us to perform better. The problem with stress is it's not just once off, it's an ongoing conversation. So we can easily define stress as the brain, the body, the mind, the soul preparing to meet something important. Now, I want you to know that stress is not the same as pressure. Pressure is the external demand. So when you say, I feel under pressure, that's because the external environment is giving you that pressure. Stress is your internal response. So, for example, the deadline that you have, that is the pressure. So if you've got a deadline to accomplish tomorrow, that's the pressure. What will happen then in your body, which is the stress response, your heart is going to race, you're going to have irritability, you're going to have tension, tightness, and so on and forth. And the key here is no two people experience the same stress response to the same demand or the same pressure. Pressure can be good. Stress begins when the system can't cope anymore. It is not a motivation issue. It is a capacity issue. So if you're playing in this balanced zone, you've got demand on you, right? But you've got the capabilities to deal with that demand. And every single one of us have a capacity line. Every single one of us. Now, every day that capacity line is moving. So some days you wake up in the morning, you've had a great night's sleep. Yeah, you ate all your breakfast. You've done all of the Bestmed tempo wellness assessments. You've even done some of the homework that they've given you. And the capacity line increases. Wow, you can take more demand. But then, unfortunately, the demand keeps increasing. There's not too many people out there that can turn around and say, I have less demand year on year. Just thinking about how much money you're going to spend on groceries in the next couple of months because of the petrol crisis, that increases demand for us. So as the demand increases, we generally cope less efficiently. And so what happens is the capacity line starts to decrease. And as that capacity line starts to decrease, instead of playing in the balanced zone and your nervous system is then balanced, you start to play in the overload zone. And when you play in the overload zone, you're in trouble because at some point, something has to break. But stress is not always negative. As I said, it's a normal survival mechanism. So we can't turn around and say, God, why did you give us a stress mechanism? It's causing problems. It's a normal mechanism. So let's talk about it. Number one, acute. As I said, you're walking, lion jumps out at you, you quickly decide to run away or beat the lion up. That's acute. The best part about acute stress is it builds the body. So if you deal effectively with acute stress, you will get stronger, faster, more effective. Your brain works better, your body works better. That's why we say acute stress is adaptive. Stress is not the enemy. Chronic, unresolved stress is. And as I said, compounding, accumulative. And at some point, you overload, you get into a point where your nervous system, your mind, your nervous system, your body, your spirit, your soul, the whole thing cannot deal with it anymore. And that is where breakdown starts to occur. And the problem with breakdown is the breakdown is not in one dimension. There's not one person that comes to see me that says, I've just got tension in my neck and shoulders. Otherwise, the rest of me, Dr. Travis, is feeling amazing. No. People come to see me, they'll tell me about the tension in the neck and the shoulders. They tell me about the digestive issues. They tell me about the high blood pressure. They tell me about the 10 million medications that you're on. They tell me about the reducing energy levels, the fatigue, the lethargia, and most importantly, poor mental health. So here it goes. Do you want to play in distress? Or do you want to play in eustress? Now, eustress is that positive stress. Something acute happens to you, you do your work with that, you give your body chance to recover, your body gets stronger, your mind gets stronger, you're more effective. That's called eustress. That's positive stress. Without it, exercise wouldn't have the benefits. Without it, kids would never learn how to crawl. However, when you get into that overload point, distress becomes your biggest enemy. And I want you to understand that you can make that difference. But you're going to have to play smart. So let's talk about it for a moment. Stress is a whole body event. It affects the brain. It affects your focus, your memory, your decision making. It affects the nervous system. Most people have heard of flight-fright activation. It affects your muscles. The amount of people that have chronic muscular back pain, neck pain, headaches, that is directly related to how much stress you keep in the body. So you go to the chiro, the physio, you go for a massage, you go for a Reiki healer, whatever, but they're not helping you to change that stress in the body. You'll get frustrated. Not only that, you become a chronic problem. It affects the heart. How many people have blood pressure issues? I ask a question all the time. How many big CEOs of big corporates in South Africa or even in the world that are not on chronic medication? Because we see it all the time, chronic medication of high blood pressure, of heart issues, diabetes, psychological issues. And how much does stress play under role? We also see it in terms of hormonal changes. Cortisol, adrenaline, lots of wonderful changes that happen. Nowadays, infertility rates are higher. More and more people have, more and more ladies have menstrual issues. More and more guys have hormonal issues. It affects your digestive system, bloating, reflux, IBS. Every second person walks in my office talking about IBS. It affects your sleep. I met a practitioner last week. She's a general practitioner that focuses just on sleep disorders. And she said to me, the rising of apnea is increasing massively. And it affects your immunity. This one's a fun one because most people in the busy office, yeah, they think that Johnny came in with a cold and a flu, and that's why you got a cold and flu. The answer is not true. Viruses, bacteria do not affect everybody. They affect those with lower susceptibility. So if your immune system has been bombarded by stress constantly, you have less resistance, which means you're the one that gets sick, and then you blame Johnny. Meanwhile, it's the stress that is accumulated. So this is why I'm a chiropractor. This is why I'm a neurological-based chiropractor. It's not about lick and pluck. It's about how the nervous system controls the body. And when we look at the nervous system, you've got to understand that there's two major parts of the nervous system: the sympathetic part and the parasympathetic part. The sympathetic part, that's your flight fright. That's when your body says, I need to go. Everybody, when they wake up in the morning, they go into a degree of sympathetic engagement to wake up. You need to. But everybody has to go into parasympathetic to be able to calm down, to go into their healing. We call that rest, digest, and healing. Now, when the nervous system has been trained, listen carefully to this, your nervous system has been trained by the environment, by the demand that you're in. And at the beginning, I said we're living in an abnormal environment, which means our nervous system is being trained by that abnormal environment to stay in sympathetic dominance. And you can write that term down, sympathetic dominance. If you spend your entire time in sympathetic dominance, your entire physiology has to keep you on the go. And there's only three responses. Response number one, you get aggressive. And we see that all the time. A person driving down Bayers Nordia, my office is in Northcliffe. People driving down Bayers Nordia, and somebody cuts them off, and then you go and cut them off, and then you get out of your car and you punch the window. That's not you normally, but that's because you're in sympathetic overload. Somebody just adds the next demand, and your body just smashes. The other one is the runaway response. Yeah? Have you ever felt like that? You're sitting in a meeting and your boss is shouting at you, and you just think, I got to get out of here. I cannot handle this anymore. I got to go. And those are the people that legitimately, they jump up and they run away. I had one kid that came to see me, and they were telling him that he was, badly behaved and blah, 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 blah at school. And the answer is he had a high allostatic load. Stress was massive in his system. So every time the teacher even vaguely raised her voice, he took it as a stress response. Demand overtook his capacity, and he got up and he ran out of the office, the school. And the third response that we have is the freeze response. Have you ever felt like that? You've got a deadline, you know that you got to get to it, it's ticking over, but you just cannot get your brain to start working. And what we need to do is we need to make that transition. We need to make that transition from the on the go to finding your calmness. Now, if you train your nervous system for on the go, it means every day you're going to be alert, tense, fast heart rate, shallow breathing, scanning for problems in threat physiology. Now, stay with me. Most people that are in threat physiology, their metabolism is based on stress. Which means the more you stress, the more your metabolism goes into dysfunction. And a person will say, but I'm trying to lose weight. Yeah, but you're hooked in stress metabolism. And in stress metabolism, your body just accumulates fat. The other stress metabolism is people then just lose muscle. And that is because you've trained your nervous system for go. So how about training your nervous system for calm, for healing, for better digestion, for better sleep, for clearer thinking, for what we call thrive physiology? Because as you train your nervous system for that, that capacity line keeps increasing. You get more effective, more efficient with what's happening. Please know, stress is not mental. It is what happens in the body as well. And you can choose to get out of that sympathetic dominance. The issue is not entering into stress mode. The issue is whether you get out of it. So let's talk in the corporate world. Let's talk in South Africa. Let's talk in your own home. Why is stress getting worse? Number one, you're always on. Burnout is a massive issue. They reckon now burnout is a baseline. It's not actually an end point. Most people are working somewhere just above, just below on that burnout line. Over 50% of employees in a survey in South Africa reported that they were at a burnout point. Some other reports globally say that it can be up as 75%. And obviously, because we want to downplay it, we ask the question, isn't it that I'm just tired? No. Isn't it that I just need a good night's sleep? No. You're at burnout. And you'll know that. Let's ask the question. On the weekend, if you're always on, you'll know this answer. On the weekend, does your time out, your rest, fix your exhaustion? If you get to the end of your holiday and you've still got exhaustion to clear out, you're in trouble. If you get to the end of the weekend, you still got exhaustion, and you say, yes, you cannot just have one extra day of holiday, then you're in trouble. Modern stress is different. There's no off switch. You're always on. Work-life boundaries have collapsed. You're always available. Your emails, your WhatsApp, you're always available. And COVID allowed us to work from home, which meant that you woke up in the morning, went straight to your device. You didn't even take that personal time. They found that remote workers can actually have higher burnout because now the boundaries between home and work are blurred. How do you switch off mentally? Another really important reason why stress is getting worse is because of a concept called entrainment. Train, like a chicka train. Entrainment. If your manager is stressed, your team feels that stress. So you're stepping into an environment that is constantly charging you. So in these heavy corporates, that management stress leads to individual stress, and it just cascades down through the management tiers. Why are managers stressed is because budgets are getting harder. And that burnout from a leadership point of view moves down to you. So you might not necessarily be that stressed, but you're now taking it from your boss. Stress is relationship. It's not just individualized. And I think that the rising expectation of all human beings, I know plenty of people say, I'm doing two people's job. Busy is now the new normal. And it becomes acceptable that even if you're tired, you have to keep working. Modern stress is physical, cognitive, emotional alone. Constant notifications, decision fatigue, context switching. You have to move. You have to move from meetings to emails to tasks. This is the new reality of stress. And I am warning us all that this is a generational curse. In the big book, the Bible, it says we're going to know this to the second or third generation. I believe this is a global pandemic. How many of you tonight at 8, 9 o'clock, you're sitting there? This is what you still got to get done today before you leave the office. This is the place that we're playing. So I'm going to go back a moment. Sorry, man. So when we're looking at stress, I want you to take note of a few things. How's your financial stress playing into this? How is your always being available playing into this? How much does the changing job landscape play into this? How much does your health anxiety play into this? How much is it that you feel like you just have to keep going? So super interesting. During COVID, I read a research. It was about heart rate variability. You can write it down, heart rate variability. It's a great way of determining how much stress is in your body, how much allostatic load you have in your body. And so during COVID, we all know that we understood that there was a sort of a milder COVID, and then there was that really serious COVID. These mild COVID, those are the people that said, hey, I didn't really feel much. It was like a common cold. And then those really serious COVID, those are the people that unfortunately ended up in hospital on respirators and died. There was a research that showed that there was a 93% prediction of who had an easy COVID and who had a more difficult COVID based on how much stress was in the body, based on whether you had a high heart rate variability, which means that you don't have much stress in the body, you've got more resilience, or a low heart rate variability, which means you didn't have that resilience, your capacity was lower. And 93% predicted. And that doesn't only play for things like COVID, it plays for all immune issues. Right. So why does nothing seem to fix it? This is where we get to the part where we can start doing something about it, okay? And the reason why nothing seems to fix it is because traditional solutions are failing. Everybody knows sleep more, breathe deeply, take a holiday, exercise, switch off your phone. We all know that. But most of the time, we're treating symptoms. So we try to get a good night's sleep when we're overloaded. We try to take more deep breaths when we're overloaded. We try and put our holiday leave in when we're overloaded. We try to exercise more to clear that stress out of our body when we're overloaded. We think, okay, now I need to switch off my phone when we're overloaded. You're treating symptoms. You're not building capacity. So let's talk about it. Because we often treat symptoms, not the source, people feel that they are trying to reduce the feeling of stress without what's driving it. We've got to get to a place where we address work overload. We got to get to a place where we address constant interruptions. We got to get to a place where we address your lack of control of yourself. We got to address the boundaries. We got to address your relationship strains. We have to globally affect the financial pressures that people feel. I want you to pause for a moment and question how much purpose and meaning that you have, because that is a major builder of capacity. If you do things because it generates that meaning and purpose in you, then you're building capacity. Remember, relief is not the same as resolution. Another reason why we are not seeming to fix it is because people switch off by a means of escape. Please note that scrolling does not get you away from sympathetic dominance. Binge watching does not get you away from sympathetic dominance. Drugs, alcohol, all of those addictive things do not get you away from sympathetic dominance. They do not allow you to build your capacity. Most people try to passively distract or numb out their problems. It may feel like a relief at that moment, but you're not creating genuine nervous system recovery. We also have to address the lack of psychological safety at work. Can you genuinely admit that you're struggling without consequence? Why is it okay that you have to pretend that you're okay? They reckon that psychological safety is now seen as the core driver between stress and resilience, between symptoms and building capacity. As we mentioned earlier, your nervous system recognizes patterns. So you got to watch what is the pattern that you're putting into your body every single day. If you want to train a dog, you give them specific patterns to train a dog. So most of us are trained by the stressful environment that we live in, and we're not training ourselves to build capacity. And again, that's why I love dealing with the nervous system, because the nervous system can be trained. And we do that all the time from a chiropractic point of view, is teaching people how to train their nervous system to have that capacity. I also mentioned earlier that stress is compounding, it's not occasional. You got to take note if your capacity is depleting. And we get to see that. We get to see that. People sleep poorly. They're not being as active as what they need to. They start eating poorly. They feel like they need to isolate themselves. They don't ever get into the sunlight. A very simple mechanism that you can put in place to start building capacity is for your first half an hour of the day, don't get onto your phone or your device. Go get into the sun. And this might be contentious, but I think wellness programs are not as effective. They are once off, but they're not building capacity. They're once off and fun and games for that day, but they're not constant enough to build capacity. Know that you cannot eliminate stress any longer. We live in this environment. You have to start building capacity. You have to start building your recovery ability, your emotional regulation, your physical capacity, clarity, boundaries, perspective, and adaptability. You can't just keep emptying the bucket. Demand cannot be greater than recovery. Pressure cannot be greater than capacity. Noise cannot be greater than boundaries. Reaction cannot be greater than regulation. When stress feels unfixable, it usually means the strategies are too shallow for the depth of the issue. If nothing seems to fix your stress, it's because stress is not one problem. It's a combination of load, lifestyle, physiology, habits, and environment. It has to be multifactorial. And from my chiropractic point of view, we look at three major issues, and I want you to take note of these. Three major components that I want you to start addressing today, and most probably a fourth one. So the first one is, are you moving your body on a day-to-day basis? Now, I'm not talking about getting up off your chair and going to the bathroom and then coming back. No, 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 no. I'm talking about moving your body with an awareness of movement every single day, releasing tension, tightness. Are you changing how you think about things? And are you looking at the biochemical imbalances? So we hit three things: myofascial, mind, body, biochemistry. That is where you start to build stress capacity. And the fourth one, which I think is the most important, is where you're at in your spiritual path. Because for most people, it's go to work, come home, nothing else happens above that. And I said earlier, you've got to find purpose and meaning. So where to from here? We've got to start getting organizations to look at stress much bigger. I don't believe stress has to be done on an individual basis. I believe that stress has to be hit on an organizational level. That means first for you, start at your family. If you're married, if you've got kids, start there. Sort that organization out. Then move to your friend circle. You'll see that stressed people hang out with stressed people. Because you hang out with a calm person and you're stressed, you feel inadequate. So find some calm people to hang out with so that you can learn how to calm. And then let's get into organizations. Let's get into organizations and help them to structure regulation consistently, intentional recovery. And let's find those team dynamics. We have to shift corporate policies. We have to shift lifestyle mechanisms. And we have to shift the medical system. Stress is no longer just a personal wellness issue. It's now about productivity, retention, leadership, and risk. So there's a few things that I want us to hit. There's a few things that I want us to hit. Can we redesign our workload and not just offer wellness? Many employers are not overwhelmed because they lack resilience. They're overwhelmed because the work design is unsustainable. That means we're going to have to look at it from a creative point of view, changing the unrealistic deadlines, finding the change for chronic understaffing. Why are we having so many excessive meetings? Why are we in a constant urgency culture? Why are there so many after-hour expectations? We got to be able to put in capacity planning, meeting reduction strategies, clear priorities, protected focus time for you and your team, and reasonable response time expectations. Now, if you're doing that, you know the answer. Your boss is going to laugh at you and tell you that there's 10 others that are waiting for your job. But if we start to create this movement, and in South Africa, we do still have Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is not a single person, it's a movement. So we can start to create that movement. We need to build a recovery culture, not always on culture, but a recovery culture. If you want to perform at high levels, and this we see in sportsmen, if you want to perform at high levels, you got to have cycles of stress and recovery every 6 to 12 weeks. Many workplaces reward constant availability, but this destroys long-term productivity. We need to normalize lunch breaks. We need to normalize leave utilization. How many of you have 400 days of leave, but you can't take leave because your system is going to break down? Your part of the office is going to break down. Take your leave. After hour boundaries, for flexible recovery time. There's got to be recovery time throughout your day. We also need to be able to find work which you can get into without interruptions. And that then allows us to respect the difference between work and rest. And the last major area I want us to focus on is training leaders to regulate stress in teams. Because that's how we start to change this corporate policy. If our managers are regulating stress in teams, then we can start to build within our team a recovery culture. Getting rid of uncertainty, micromanagement, fear, poor communication, emotional burden. We got to create calm, clarity, psychological safety, realistic expectations, trust. People often leave managers before they leave companies, and that's because of the stress overload. What we need to implement is managers' training and communication, early burnout recognition, constructive feedback skills, emotional regulation under pressure, and clear delegation. You cannot escape your reality. You can only create it. If stress has been created by the workplace, it cannot be solved by one individual. But with the 300, 400 people on this call, it can be solved by that unity. Are you trying to numb stress or recover from stress? Are you treating the symptoms or the source? Is your problem too much demand, too little recovery, or both? I really hope that you realize that you can start today to create that reality that you're after. And because I believe stress is a pandemic, it's only going to get worse unless we all accumulate together. That's why I'm grateful for platforms like this, that Bestmed sits in place, where we can come together and discuss the real issues, the real problems, and then collectively go forth and change that. I guarantee you, you're not the only stressed person in your office. I guarantee you, most people in your office are trying to pretend that they're okay. So let's bring people together so that we can start to create a collective reality where stress is no longer the reality, but calmness is. If we look at places in South Africa, we can find that so much easier. I'm a Vali, I'm a Joburg, I've lived my whole life in Joburg. I want to find that in Joburg. We've got a beautiful city, we've got beautiful people, and we've got the capability to do so. Vilmarie, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Travis. I think that was such an insightful webinar and information that you provided us. Amazing, amazing. I wanted to see if maybe just go to the next slide. Sorry. Next one. Sorry, you can come back to that one. while we do questions, if I can just ask our Bestmed members and everyone on today's session, take a moment, take out your phone, scan the QR code, and just give us your feedback while we're doing the sessions. We would love to hear what your experience was today. And then let's see if there's any questions. I see here, Leanne, you have a question. I've been going to Dr. T for nearly 2 years. Wow, thank you, Leanne, for that. He's absolutely brilliant. I would not still be standing. Wow, thank you. That is such a great testimony. But I think we all learned a lesson today from Dr. Travis. If
Thank you,
there's
Leanne.
any
I appreciate it.
questions, please pop it into the chat box. In our office, Bianca says, we have quarterly wind down sessions where we take an hour to just be creative with journaling or adult coloring or chatting away. It really helps.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great
Amazing.
answer. Quarterly, every quarter. That's amazing.
Quarterly. Yeah, that really is a very amazing initiative.
I'm going to just jump in on that one,
Let me
Vilmarie. I want
see
to
here.
add that in if I don't mind.
Yes.
When we look at time, this is one of the challenges with stress, is we either spend quantity time or quality time. So when somebody is stressed all the time, they are spending quantity time, which means there's only a certain amount of hours. And that's why the more stressed you get, the less productive you are. So what a lot of businesses will struggle to do is put in these quarterly recovery things because they think take a day out or to take a weekend out of our productivity is going to be a problem. But I promise you, you will start to work in quality time, which makes people more effective.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Dr. Travis. I see a question here that says, I need to see Dr. Travis, but I have been unwell, but no diagnosis. So maybe you can tell something about that, Dr. Travis, about how someone can reach you or a chiropractor if they feel that they want to see someone like you.
So let's just make that clear. This talk has got nothing to do with me as a chiropractor, okay? So if anybody is looking for a chiropractor, go to www.chiropractic.co.za. That is the Chiropractic Association of South Africa. And there is a Find a Chiropractor a tab there. I think an important one to point out there, Vilmarie, is a lot of people are trying to find that diagnosis. Two things that I want to say about that. Number one is at this point in time, it's really difficult to determine how much allostatic load that you have. So allostatic load is going to make you sick. You're going to have a lot of symptoms, but it doesn't show up necessarily on a blood test. We're definitely not going to see that on an X-ray or an MRI. So you're going to doctors that are looking for those kinds of diagnostic tests, but they're not determining allostatic load. And I think that's vitally important. The other side of diagnosis is, remember, diagnosis then means that there's a set treatment protocol. If stress is underlying your diagnosis and they're not incorporating stress into the treatment protocol is not going to be as effective. So I challenge people to not just look for the diagnosis, but really looking at that holistic conversation, because that's when holistic correction can be put in place. That doesn't mean don't follow treatment protocols. No, follow them, but make sure you're also looking holistically.
Very, very true. I think that's one of the main takeaways that I take from today's message is, stress is not mental. It is physiological, and it gets so caught up in our bodies that we struggle to, even when you want to lose weight and you're eating right and you're exercising, but you're still struggling to lose weight. It is because your cortisol levels is so high in your body. So it's very true. We should look at our stress and holistic approach for that. I have a question here. Now it's going to be the last question that I take today before we we move on. I see a few members are saying that if you scan the QR code on the screen right now, it says that you've already done the survey. Please make sure that you select the correct webinar topic, and it should be the stress within the body for rating your experience of Dr. Travis's webinar. And then you will, if you haven't done that one, then it probably shouldn't give you that answer. But just let me know if you have still a query about that. You can email me at tempo@bestmed.co.za. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so the last question before we do our competition questions is, does the food we eat, processed foods, takeaways, contribute to our stress levels, including what our children eat?
100%. So two things that are important here is, number one, when we eat outside of what our body requires, that is automatically going to stress our system. So, for example, you eating a processed hamburger, your body recognizes that there is protein and there's carbs and there's fat in that hamburger, but that hamburger has been processed from here to Cape Town. So the protein, the carb, and the fat is not readily available. It's going to hit your digestive system, and your digestive system is going to struggle to absorb what it requires. So, unfortunately, processed food adds stress to the system. The second part of processed food is we're not feeding what our body requires to be able to build capacity. So we get into chronic biochemical, and I said that early on, biochemical imbalances where things like chronic inflammation, chronic pain, water retention, those things occur, which then keeps stress within the system because we're not breaking that down. So an easy way is to start listening to what your body requires. And I always tell my patients to differentiate between that which you want. I want that piece of chocolate cake. There's no doubt about it. My body doesn't need that piece of chocolate cake, but I do need good nutrients to be able to allow my body to build capacity. So yeah, I would agree with that the stress comes based on the food that we eat, the water that we consume. And most of us of my sort of age ate well when we were younger. So we didn't accumulate that load until we were much older, university days. But the younger kids now, processed food is the way that they go. If you go to places like America, and we're about 10 years behind that, but if you go to places like America, it's very difficult to get fresh food.
Thank you, Dr. Travis. This reminds me of our previous webinar where we discussed the gut and brain connection, the bio connection. And we specifically focused that when we're feeling stressed and anxious and all those things, that is why we want to eat, because there is a connection between what we eat and what we feel and our emotions. That's why when we're anxious and stressed, we want to just eat and eat and eat that chocolate, even though we don't really need it. Our body doesn't need it, but our brains and our bodies needs to relax and wind down. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to go into our 3 questions. As always, the first person to answer my question correctly in the chat box, I will take your name down, and then I will be sending you a gift. So my first question, and this is the easy question, above what age do you need to be to participate in the Tempo Wellness Program? See, I told you that was the quick and easy one. So Nikki Kennedy, let me just write your name now. You are my winner for question 1. Well done. That is the correct first answer. It is above the age of 16 years. All Bestmed members can participate in the Tempo Wellness Program by activating it by doing your Tempo lifestyle screening. All right. So my second question. So on the Tempo Wellness webpage, I want you to name one of the nutritional wellness articles that is currently on display. So there's 3 articles that's normally on display. I want you just to name one of them, and then yeah, you will be my winner. All right, let me see. Let us see. I just want to check that it hasn't changed, because it seems like someone is answering me, but it's not the question answers that I have. Let me just verify. Okay, my articles. No, guys, that is a how-to video. I need you to name an article. Okay, guys, not the videos, because I see many of you are answering the video question, the name, but it's not the video name. So I'm going to search until I get the correct. So practical healthy eating and lifestyle tips. That was a video. All right. Why healthy eating helps when you are stressed. Marlindi Boyens. Marlindi Boyens, you are the first person to answer me correctly. Well done. Can expect an email from me soon, and then I will be sending you a gift. Okay, well done. Thank you. So our third question. According to Dr. Travis, okay,
Sure.
our, our nervous system has 2 main parts. Okay, what does sympathetic mean, and what does the parasympathetic mean? So there was 2 words that he used, and that is the 2 words that I am looking for.
Can I
Okay,
answer? Can I answer? Can
so
I answer?
no. No. Okay, the first person to answer me correctly was Samantha Bueta. Samantha Bueta. So yes, it means go, and the other one means healing. So thank you so much, Dr. Travis, for today's insightful session. I really hope every single one of us does something to get us more into the parasympathetic stages of our bodies and no longer just functioning in sympathetic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Dr. Travis has given information about himself there on the webinar. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar next month, which is about trauma within our bodies. We will see you there. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marie. Thank you, Dr. Travis, for an amazing session. I will now be ending the webinar. Thank you, members, for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you.